condition, Stone. My condition. He goes with you.
I work alone.
You work with who, I say, or you don't work at all.
Split Second may well be one of the most violently early 90s movies I've ever seen. A weird mishmash of genres that end up being a cross between Red Dwarf, Alien and Blade Runner, all with a bunch of neon lighting and some of the grossest dystopian sets you are ever likely to see, all underpinned by a fantastic performance by Rutger Hauer. The plot is, on the surface, a typical 90s buddy cop jaunt with Rutger Hauer playing Detective Harley Stone, a cop who, as the film says, has worked in every hellhole on the planet and been fired from all of them. He survives on coffee, smokes, chocolate and pure anxiety alone. Another quote from the film. Of course, it wouldn't be a 90s buddy cop movie if the live wire detective didn't have a straight-laced buddy. In this case, that is Neil Duncan's character, Dick Durkin. And yes, the film is entirely aware of how stupid those names are, because we even get a scene with Durkin laughing at his own name. Which was actually Neil Duncan legit just laughing during a take at how stupid the names are, but the director liked it and kept it in the final edit. Not being content with being a buddy cop flick, it's also a thriller because Stone is tracking a serial killer who years prior murdered his partner right before his very eyes, which he's felt guilt over ever since, seeing as he was also having an affair with his wife Michelle, who is a pre-Sex in the City fame Kim Cattrall. But post Star Trek VI The Undiscovered country fame, as she's sporting her haircut from that film. Now, usually an early 90s buddy cop thriller flick wouldn't pique my interest, but this is also a future dystopian buddy cop thriller flick, seeing as we are set in a post-global warming London, where everything is run down, dirty, flooded with disgusting looking brown water and overrun by massive rats. Apparently the atmosphere acted as an inspiration for David Fincher for his serial killer movie Seven, something I can definitely see because this film and that film share a very grimy look and feel, with Split Second having a definite sense of style and scene setting. This is really helped by the lighting. It's not often I get to talk about the dynamic range of a lighting setup in a movie, but the day has finally arrived, with the dynamic range being the difference between the blacks and whites within a lighting setup. So very bright whites and very dark blacks is a very wide dynamic range, with this film probably having one of the most dynamic ranges that I've ever seen, to the point it is almost distracting. With such bright white light you can barely see the actors in the foreground, who are of course dressed in all black. It does though absolutely give the film a unique style, atmosphere and look, which you'll love if you're a fan of a dystopian hellhole lit so brightly you can barely see past the light. Added to that, everything in this film genuinely looks disgusting and somewhat believable. It definitely adds an extra layer of atmosphere, and me the heebie-jeebies when Kim Cattrall eats his chocolate off the fridge. But even that isn't enough, no, because this is also a sci-fi horror, with the serial killer and Stone having a psychic connection, and the serial killer, well, that's actually some form of demonic xenomorph looking deal that likes to eat people's hearts. Which normally would be a spoiler, but they put that right on the DVD case. This does give the film a whole bunch of glorious gore though, with plenty of cadavers missing most of their chest and literally gallons of fake blood splashed around the place, even occasionally dripping and oozing from the ceiling. So yeah, this film throws everything and the kitchen sink into its plot. The dystopian elements aren't ever really explored. They merely act as window dressing, and the sci-fi horror elements are really very silly and never really explained or explored either, and are also kind of just window dressing. They just keep getting more convoluted as the film goes on. What is this monster? Why does Satan look like a cross between Venom and a xenomorph? Are questions this film has no interest in answering. The real entertainment actually comes from the interplay between Hauer and Duncan. Initially they despise each other, but by the end Stone has warmed immensely towards Durkin, who has become just as unhinged as Stone has after his various run-ins with the monster, Both actors give great performances and they have wonderful on-screen chemistry, with the performance by Hauer especially really elevating what could have been a totally derivative schlockfest. Admittedly, a lot of the dialogue is unintentionally hilarious, but between this interplay and the action scenes peppered throughout that give Stone ample opportunity to use his absolute hand cannon of a gun, it meant the 90-minute runtime skipped along entertainingly enough for me. The support cast is also really good, with Pete Postlethwaite playing Paulson, a copper who despises and mistrusts Stone. Whenever he and Hauer are on screen together, the entertainment value rises immeasurably. Postlethwaite is maybe one of the most unsung legends of acting. I've never seen him be bad in anything. Alan Armstrong gives a suitably sweary performance as Thrasher, the police chief, and Kim Cattrall rounds out the main cast. But much like the dystopian setting and sci-fi horror elements, she's treated more like window dressing than an actual character. For 90% of her performance, she looks like she's in a trance or dreamlike state, and things just happen around her, until the very last scene where they suddenly forgot about that and she's now Ripley from Alien. Of course, this being the 90s, she has an entirely pointless nude scene. The three main characters of Stone, Durkin and Michelle also all wear so many hilariously applied layers of plot armor that at one point I genuinely thought the whole plot was going to be that Rutger Hauer's character was dreaming. It's so badly done, it goes right through terrible and straight round to an unintentional layer of hilarity. The plot admittedly makes almost no sense if you actually try and think about it for more than a second, but it's actually such a mishmash of genres because the original script had existed since the late 80s, with Gary Scott Thompson shopping it around without it ever getting picked up. Originally, it was a straight buddy cop action thriller set in LA with a traditional serial killer protagonist who killed 5 people every 5 years across the last quarter of a century, leaving a pentagram carved into their chests. Unsurprisingly, this was called Pentagram. By the time the script was picked up, however, it was too similar to 1990's The First Power, so the dystopian future London setting and the weird demonic alien creature were added, along with the psychic connection being leaned more heavily into at Hauer's insistence, with this version being titled Black Tide during production. At some point before release, the title was once again changed to Split Second. The original director, Tony Maylam, actually had to step away from the production due to all the stress no doubt caused by the constant rewrites that occurred during production, with the actual monster and very nature of the killer not being finalised until well into the shoot, meaning Stephen Norrington only had 3 weeks to design and produce the creature suit. This means we as an audience don't really get to see the monster very much throughout the runtime, just seeing a claw here, a part of the body there until the very end of the film. Not going to lie, this is a good thing, because the claws and the body look pretty good. The face and the teeth look exactly like what they are, painted rubber. They look about as menacing as a 3-year-old. With Maylam stepping away, it meant that the final subway scene and a few other smaller scenes to complete the film were directed by Ian Sharp, who gets a co-director's credit as a result, which is also maybe why Cattrall's character seems like a totally different person in that final scene. Oh, and it's one of those films that teases a sequel, but sadly we never got one, as this film flopped at the US box office due to being released during the middle of the LA riots. All in all, Split Second is a film I had a lot of fun watching, one that you are probably going to put on and love it straight away or hate it straight away within the first 10 to 15 minutes. And honestly, your opinion is almost certainly not going to deviate from those early thoughts by the time you reach the electrifying climax. If you enjoyed that, then please like, comment, and even consider subscribing, because next week I will return with Hard Ticket to Hawaii.